I want them to say that I had a life worth repeating, a life worth striving for, a life like everyone else's, with struggles, temptations, and tragedy. But amidst it all, that I remained true to myself, had my priorities in order, and navigated life with God leading the way. I want them to say I worked hard and played harder, that I believed in sacrifice and being there for others, friends, family, and community. And most important, I want them to say that I knew how to love, that I lavishly displayed it in my marriage, with my kids, and with others I came into contact with. I want them to stand before my grave, thankful for the role I played in their life, and equipped because they knew me to make a great one for themselves.
How do you put a man in prison without putting him into a cell? How do you rob a man of his destiny, of his purpose, without him even knowing it? How do you do it? And I think it all goes back to one of my favorite stories of bread and circus, is what I like to think about it and call it is think of the movie Gladiator. Think of the Roman Empire, 100 AD, Julius Caesar and those fellas. You see everybody in the stands that you see there, they were a slave to the Roman Empire. They were prisoners. They had no purpose. But you see what the Roman Empire knew that they didn't know is about half the year they would put on games and events and, exotic animals that they're fighting and taking down with, a couple dudes are taken down with a toothpick and some brushes. And people went and they watched it and they were so entertained. And you see Caesar and those guys, they said, if you want to rob a man of his destiny and make him a slave, then just make sure he's always full and make sure he's entertained. And when I hear that story, I think, well, those guys are some morons, dude. Or I know somebody that is definitely living that life of distraction, and they're entertained by things, and it's sucking their life away. I know people just like that. But I also think that we are more susceptible to being slaves now than ever, even back then. There's so many distractions around us that becoming a slave to something is way easier than it's ever been without even knowing it. And I think what we need to do is we need to ignore and kill anything counterproductive to our purpose. And so one of the things I think about with bread, what is bread? Bread I think is anything that gives you comfort, really. I mean, a temporary peace. And I don't think it's not obviously a bad thing, but it's usually the easy road. It's usually what gives you that short-term dopamine hits, and you guys all know what I'm talking about. The obvious ones are drugs, alcohol, money, the money you got in your wallet that gives you that comfort, the self-righteousness we have. I think the comparison to others that we have that just makes us feel better about ourselves. At least we're not that guy. And then what is a circus? Well, circus I think is distracting. It's something distracting. It's ultimately not important at all. And it really has nothing to do with our lives. I mean, I think obviously the big games, not that there's anything wrong with sports and games and all this stuff and fantasy football. But it's usually what everyone else is doing, It's the social media. It's the screen time that we're on our phones so damn much. It's the Netflix. It's celebrity news. I think it's obviously pornography is another one that it's just distracting. And I think life is just so much more than just the next big thing, the next big event or pay-per-view event or whatever. Life's just so much more than that. I think that's when we allow the good thing to become the most important thing in our life. And I'm guilty of this too. And I think, but there's also a time when all of us need to understand who we're going to meet. Are we going to meet the person that we will become one day, or we're going to meet him today and make some changes in our life? And one thing I think about too is I was actually at the beach this week, and I was out in the morning, just not not bragging here, but we're just doing a kettlebell workout in the morning on the beach. And it was still dark and the sun was starting to come up, and all of a sudden people are coming out left and right, out of their rooms, off the roof, out of the lobby. They're coming out of the bottom of the pool. They're all going towards the beach, and they're all just got their phones with them, and they're stopping at the beach right where the water meets the sand, and they're starting taking pictures of the sunrise. And then all of a sudden I realized that they put their phones down. Some of them sat down on the beach, and they were just seemed to be present. They just seemed to be kind of soaking in the sunrise and just capturing that moment, that beauty of that moment. And it was just so odd to me. But in that moment, I think we all realize it's so obvious how beautiful and how precious that life is. But then I also think, isn't all of life like this? Isn't the sunrise the same as a Tuesday afternoon when you get to pick your kids up from school, or you get to go to dinner with your wife, you get to help your kids with homework, you get to work out, whether by yourself or with some guys or whatever. But I think all of life is sort of like that. These are all sacred moments, you see. But it goes back to the bread and circus that I believe that rob us of that clarity that we only get every once in a while. I think the sunrise signifies the time that's just taken by each and every day. But I believe the sacred in that sunrise is the sacred that's in everything that we do, that's not bread and circuses. And I just think, I even saw a guy in a Michigan hat out there just searching for some seashells in his soul too. And so I think anybody can relate to this. But it's funny. I just think that speaks to us in a way that cuts past the distraction and past the bread and past the circuses. And I think it also goes back to the words we get to versus have to, right? We get to do these things. We get to pick our kids up from school. We get to help them with homework. It's not we have to do this or we have to do that. It's we get to do these things. We get to see the sunrise on the beach. And one of the things, as one of the book recommendations I have too, is Through the Eyes of a Lion this week. It's about Levi Lusko, and he lost his daughter, and it was incredible. Lost his daughter at a really young age. But one of the quotes he has in this book is, you see, most people die at 25, but we're not buried until we're 75. Most people die at the age of 25, but we just bury them at 75. It's because we're so distracted, and the bread and circuses of life just cause us to drift through, and I'm guilty of it more than most. And so that's the message for this week, is I think we should wear out in life and not rust out. Do the things we want to truly do versus just sitting around rusting out. Don't let the good things in life become the most important things in life. Throw the bread out to the fish and sell the circus tickets, because we ain't going this year.
Where do I go? What will I be? Get who I am. What will I see? Maybe